providing practical change should be the number one priority for any government looking to improve the lives of Indigenous people, obviously. Instead, Labor's planning to do exactly the opposite. They want to put families, including children, in harm's way by planning to remove the cashless debit card. This card is designed to ensure that money is spent on necessities, not on alcohol and gambling. It's there to address those social issues. But all that is set to change if Labor goes ahead with this plan. The Shadow Health Minister Anne Ruston has been in the Northern Territory talking with communities who are deeply affected by this cashless debit card. She joins me now from Darwin. Thanks for joining us, Senator. Do communities still want the cashless debit card?
Well, look, absolutely. Much of the testimony that we've received, particularly from Indigenous Australians, has very strongly been in support of the cashless debit card and how income management has stabilised their lives, the lives of their family, has helped their communities. But I think, probably one of the most compelling things I have ever seen at a hearing was listening to Noel Pearson talk about how 20 years of his life's work was going to be thrown away by the Labor Party's decision to get rid of this technology because he believed that it had done such an amazing job of supporting his communities up in Cape York. It's some of the most powerful things that I've ever seen. But I think the other part of it that's really, really distressing is that the Labor Party made this decision without speaking to anybody. They haven't been out and spoken to communities. They haven't spoken to Indigenous Australians and leaders in their communities. They made the decision. Now they're trying to retrofit consultation. And a lot of the stuff they're hearing, I'm not sure they're liking very much.
Yeah, look, it is extraordinary because this is stuff that affects people at the really pointy end of social problems. And it's been trialled largely around the country, right? We've got to see how it works. But there is a lot of evidence around saying it's working. And if that means it's working, it means it's helping the life of children. It's protecting a woman perhaps from domestic violence. I mean, the outcomes here are that tangible.
Well, I think one of the things that the Labor Party really does have to have a serious think about with this legislation, and I hope they think about it and change their mind, is that we have vulnerable children who are at risk of abuse and neglect. We have women who are being, abused and victims of domestic, family and sexual violence that has largely been generated by some of the social dysfunction in communities that has been helped by this income management tool that we've had in place. And so I really do urge the government to go and actually have a look and speak to the real people, the people who've benefited, and not just listen to their friends in the city that are a long, long, long way away from where many of these problems are occurring. But what they did during the election campaign is they demonised the cashless debit card by telling lies about it, by telling Australians that the government then, our government, was going to force age pensioners onto the card. So now they've actually created themselves a great big problem because they've demonised the very technology that many people in community are now telling them is the advanced technology that's actually delivering a difference. So I really do hope that they are listening and they're not just making this inquiry a token gesture, and they'll make some changes to their policy and their legislative position so that vulnerable Australians, particularly women and children, are protected by every mechanism that we have available to us.
Now, was your colleague Karen Andrews, the former Home Affairs Minister, right to call for Scott Morrison to exit Parliament?
Well, the matter in relation to any member of Parliament is a matter for their electorate. The people of Cook elected the Prime Minister. Elected Scott Morrison when he was the Prime Minister and elected him again at the last election when they chose for him not to continue as the Prime Minister. So in terms of whether Mr Morrison sits in the Parliament or not, I think that is entirely a matter for the people who live in the electorate of Cook.
But is his breach of trust with his party colleagues and with the electorate severe enough that he should leave Parliament?
Well, I think, obviously Mr Morrison made a very lengthy explanation of why he'd done what he did yesterday. And I believe he's apologised to the ministers that were involved. But we also have a situation where the government is seeking advice from the Solicitor General in relation to the specifics of what's happened here. And maybe we should wait and see what the Solicitor General comes back with.
Yep. Sounds like you're going to wait and see, and I don't blame you. Thanks for joining us, Anne. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chris.